What's up, guys? Welcome back. So today's video is going to be a two-part video. The first part, I'm going to show you guys how to change the oil in our Tundras. If you want to start doing it yourself, save a little money, do your own work on the truck, it's very easy to do. The second part, I'm going to showcase a few aftermarket pieces that will make your life a heck of a lot easier and cleaner if you plan on doing your own oil changes long-term down the road, multiple times. The first piece I'm going to show you is the Fumoto Valve. I'll put a picture on your screen. If you're not familiar with it, a lot of us have heard of it. If you don't use it, you've probably heard of it. Very, very simple piece that just screws into your oil pan, which I will show you throughout the video, and it just makes it a lot easier to drain your oil pan. The second piece of the system, well, this is a separate piece, I should say. It doesn't come with the Fumoto Valve, but this is a kit that I got from MotivX Tools. Now, I got everything you're going to see off Amazon. I'll put direct links down below the video for you. If you like what you see and you want to get these things, direct links will be down below. In this MotivX tool kit, you get 3 pieces that are going to make your life a lot easier. The wrench to get your filter off, fits over our filters perfectly. A 2-part funnel. Where this comes in handy, if you've ever done your own oil changes, you know if you go to put a standard funnel in your engine or in the area where you're going to pour the oil, if you just rest that standard funnel down in there, you almost have to hold it because it can move around. There's nothing securing it in place. This you could actually screw right into that area. It's nice and sturdy, rock solid. You don't have to hold it. Without this, you almost have to hold the standard funnel with one hand, pour the oil with the other. All right, so again, just makes your life a lot easier, less risk of spilling, keeps it nice and clean. The last piece of this MotivX toolkit is probably my favorite. This is to drain your filter. Now, this thing is worth its weight in gold. If you've ever done your own changes, you know draining that filter can make an absolute mess. This is the piece that you're supposed to use right here. This comes with your new filters, and I'm going to show all this stuff throughout the video. I'll show all these things in action. This thing, plain and simple, it's just not good. It's terrible. It doesn't work well. It just makes a mess, as you're going to see. This takes the place of that piece right there. So again, I'll show you as we go, but this is basically going to screw up into the filter housing. It allows you to put this end into a container. The oil from the filter just drains down here into a container of your choice. Makes it so much easier and cleaner. All right, so those are the 3 things that come in that MotivX kit. All right, so let me jump in. Again, first part of the video, I'm going to show you just how to change your oil standard, and we'll get the Fumoto Valve installed. The second part of the video, I'll show you guys all these things in action and show you how much easier and cleaner they will make your life. So we got a college game on. It's a Saturday here in September. Game is on. Truck is ready. Let's get into it. So once you remove your skid plate, which I did not show that on a video, I have the RCI skid plate, so mine's going to be a little bit different than yours if you're running stock. If you're not familiar with how to remove your stock skid plate, I'll put a link up above you to my RCI install. I do go over how to remove that stock plate in that video. All right, so once that's out of the way, and this will be the last time I actually have to remove this plate because it's going to be so much neater to do, which again, I'll show you coming up in the video. You come up underneath here, and this is your oil pan right here. This is a 14mm bolt that we're going to loosen up and unscrew and take out of there. Once we do that, the oil is going to start shooting out of there. I'm going to get my drainage container in place, and again, it just makes a little bit of a mess. The oil splashes everywhere, which is why we have the tarp down here to protect the garage floor and even over onto the wheel, because the oil can splash over that way. All right, so I'm just going to get my 14mm, loosen that, remove it, and let the oil drain out. Okay, once all the oil has drained out of the pan, just take a shop rag, wipe it off any extra oil. Make sure the old washer came off of sometimes the washer will stick to the pan. The Fumoto Valve has a new washer that comes with it and already on there. So just wipe off the extra old oil, and you're simply just going to thread the Fumoto Valve into that hole in place of the 14mm bolt that we removed. So just turn it on there. And you can hand tighten it just like this. I'm just going to wipe off that extra oil that slightly ran out of there. And you want to tighten this. You can do it a couple different ways. Fumoto recommends that you tighten it to 15 foot-pounds of torque or 177 inch-pounds of torque. If you don't have any way to measure that, you can simply go hand tight, which there it is right there. Now I do have a torque wrench but I'm going to show you. I know some guys won't have one of them, so you can also take a 17mm socket and pop it on the end right there, and then it says go about 1/4 of a turn after hand tight. So it's right there. So we'll start here, and we're just going to go about 1/4 of a turn past hand tight. All right, so that should do it. Of course, when we're all done, we'll check for leaks, but that's about it. The only other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab that black cover for the nipple and the lock and pop it on there so the valve cannot come undone by accident. And that's all there is to installing the Fumoto valve. I'll give you a look at it in action for the next oil change. Next up is draining the filter, which is right here. You have to remove this silver piece first, which there's a hole right in the middle of it, and it's simply a 3/8 inch socket drive. So you just take a 3/8 inch drive, pop it up in there, and you can go ahead and unscrew this silver piece. Now with this silver circular piece removed that we just took off, you can now take your filter. This is you can see the part number here on the box. This is the new filter. I didn't take it out of the box yet, but this little plastic piece is the piece that I mentioned earlier in the video that is supposed to help you drain the oil out of the filter before removing it. Now it does help, but as you're going to see, it makes an absolute mess. I actually have one of these like shoulder length gloves. I don't know how well you can see it in the video. I use it for hunting when I'm gutting deer, stuff like that. I actually have one of them on because it's virtually impossible to not get this on your hand, arm, running down your arm when you do this, as you're about to see. So you're supposed to take this little clip, little piece that comes with your filter, and you're supposed to just push it up in there, and the oil is supposed to drain out. Hopefully my arm isn't in the way, but I have to get myself in a position here. Let me see if I can get out of the way. So you're gonna push it up into the filter. And of course, now it's actually gonna make, oh, there we go. I was gonna say it's gonna make a liar out of me. As you can see, it's draining the oil out of the filter, but it's also running down my hand. And usually it's worse than this, I'm not gonna lie. This is probably one of the cleaner times that I've ever used one of these things. But you can clearly see it running down my hand and my arm. So we're just going to hold this in place until all the oil is out of the filter. So you can see you don't necessarily have to hold that piece in place. If you push hard enough, you can get it to kind of snap in, but like I mentioned, it's almost impossible to get that snapped up in there fast enough before the oil starts draining all over your hand and arm. All right, I just wanted to show you that you can actually snap that up there in place and not hold it. But again, by the time you get it snapped into place, the oil is already running down your hand and your arm, making an absolute mess. All right, so now that the filter is empty, we can go ahead and take that plastic piece back out of there just by kind of pulling on it and torquing it to the side a little bit. Set that aside, and we're going to take the new tool that we got with the Motiv kit. The back end has a 3/8 inch drive again, so you're just going to take your 3/8 inch drive right there, pop it in there, and now there's grooves in this tool. You can probably see right here, hopefully. There's flanges on the filter that you're going to have to line up with those grooves. All right, so just kind of eyeball it, line them up, pops right over them like that, and then we're just going to go ahead and remove the filter. Okay, so now that we have the filter and cap removed, you can just take the filter out of the old cap. So now what we need to do, if you look at, I've already taken the new one apart, but this piece right here, the cylinder piece, is much longer on the stock one from Toyota. We need to get that out of there and place that one in the new, the aluminum cap that we're going to be replacing it with, because the one that comes with that new aluminum cap is much shorter. In order to do that, I'm going to, basically there's a couple tabs down there, and I'm actually going to show you on the new one since I already took it apart to make it a little bit easier to understand. The only thing that's holding this down in the cap, and this goes for the new one and the factory one that we're taking off, these tabs, you can see there's one here and one here. What you need to do is so that's going to be down in there. What you need to do is get a screwdriver or a set of needle nose pliers, whatever you have, get down in there and bend this tab right here and that tab right there. So those two tabs, you need to bend them up. All right? And what that's going to allow you to do, so once you have them bent up like that, now what that allows you to do is it's spring loaded in there. So when you first take it out, there's going to be a spring in there. So let me just put it back down in there and show you here. So let me just get it set back down in there real quick. Okay, so this is how it's going to come. Okay, so now that I have them tabs bent up, and if you look in there, you may be able to see why you need to bend them up. But when you're looking at it in person, you can't mistake it. Bend those tabs up, and then what you can do is you have to push down on that spring tension and then turn it, and that will release the piece. Okay, the spring will come out, and then there's a little silver piece in the bottom. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat that on the factory one to remove this longer cylinder piece, so we can then install it into the new aluminum cap. All right, so we have this piece out of the factory one, and again, comparing them, you can obviously see the difference here. So all we're going to do now, the spring and this little metal piece that's in the bottom, and so these two pieces in the spring, they're both the same on the new aluminum cap and the factory cap. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to use the new one just because it's new and nice and clean. All right, but you can use the older factory one if you wanted to. So all you're going to do is take the new aluminum cap, take that piece, and if you look at it, it has two different sides. It has one side that looks like that. That's going to go up, and then the other side looks like that. That's going to go down. So again, that's the down side. So you're going to place it down in the bottom there. Just set it down in there. And then take the spring. Again, the springs are the same, so it doesn't matter if you use the new spring or the old one. Set the spring down. Here, I'll actually show you on the old one. So again, this metal piece goes down in there. The spring sits right on top like that. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to take the new spring, set it down in there, and then take your longer cylinder piece from Toyota. And again, those tabs are still bent up on the sides, because if you don't have those tabs bent up, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to twist this down in there. You'll see why when you're looking down in there. There's things that block it. So take it, put it over the spring, push down. Whoops, actually. I'm sitting there telling you guys to make sure those tabs are bent up, and the one somehow got bent back down on me. All right, so let's try that again. Both tabs are bent up. Spring is in place. So push down on that spring tension, and that will allow you to secure that new tube into the aluminum housing. Okay, spring tension's on there. Now make sure you go back in there and straighten those tabs out with your screwdriver, because again, that's what's going to lock it in place and not allow it to pop out of there on you. So push those back down and make sure it's locked in for you. All right, so now that those tabs are bent straight again, that's what's locking that in place, not allowing it to turn anymore. We're now ready to put the new filter on, and the new filter kits, again, I'll give you another look at that part number. Hopefully it shows up. I'll put it on your screen as well. I know there's a little bit of a glare there. So it comes with the new filter, which are obviously just going to take the new filter, slide it down over the cylinder. Make sure it's all the way down in there. And then it also comes with two O-rings, a big one and a little one. So what you're going to do here, the bigger one goes, there's a groove right in here. And this goes for the new aluminum housing or the older factory one. You're going to put these new O-rings on. Even if you're sticking with the old factory cap, you're going to change these O-rings out. All you're going to want to do, I just take my finger, just get a little bit of oil on my fingers and just kind of go around the O-ring and lubricate it a little bit. You don't have to go overboard. Just less is more. You just want a little bit of oil on there to lubricate that. So we're just going to take it and pop it down over. And I know I'm off camera right now, but this is pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to take that O-ring down, pick it up here, down into the groove. So you just roll the O-ring down over the threads, and you can now see it's in that groove. Okay, very simple. Again, just make sure you take a little bit of oil on your fingertips and lubricate it. The smaller O-ring that comes in the pack, that's going to go, you can see there's a hole or a circle indentation right in here. Same thing, I'm just going to take my fingers, just get a very small amount of oil on my fingers and lubricate that O-ring. Now you may not want to put that in place just yet, only because it might fall out on you when we're going to put this. I'm going to pop it in there and hopefully we get lucky, it'll stay in there. If not, obviously we're going to be putting the cap back up in the truck like this. There's really nothing holding that in there other than gravity, so you can get it in there and it's staying right now, but just be careful that that doesn't fall out. So we're now ready to take this and screw it back up into the truck. Before we put the new filter and cap back on there, I usually just take a clean shop rag and just kind of wipe all in around here just to make it nice and clean. You're doing all this work, so you might as well make it as clean as possible just to get all that old nasty oil out of there. All right, so we got it clean, so we're just going to take the new assembly. Again, just make sure that smaller O-ring doesn't fall out on you. We're just going to carefully pop it up in there and start screwing the new assembly into place. We'll get it kind of hand tight, and then we'll get our tool on it. And we'll go ahead and tighten it down. Again, just make sure the flanges line up with the grooves in the tool, like that. And we can go ahead and tighten it down. Once you have it in place, take your silver cap. Again, O-ring is still in there, lubricated with that little bit of oil, and then just screw this back onto the cap. Next up is refilling. So all we're going to do is remove the cap, which is right here on the right side of the engine. Just going to set that aside. I'll get to show you the first new piece other than that aluminum cap. So again, we're just going to take the new funnel from Motiv, screw that on there nice and tight, and now the bottom end is going to screw into that spot right there. So again, that's pretty handy. Again, if you just put an older funnel down in there, it can flop around and everything. That's on there nice and secure. So now I can fill that with the new oil. Don't have to worry about that funnel tipping over on me or anything like that. So let me grab the new oil. It's going to take between 7.5 and 8 quarts of oil for the 5.7 V8 on the Tundra. So we'll put in 7.5. We'll start it up, check it, and then if we have to, we'll add another half quart or so. All right, guys, I don't know how well that's going to show up on the video, but you can see the oil, hopefully. It's right, it's a little bit below that top hole in there. All right, so we are good to go. Oil change is complete. Last step, of course, guys, before you throw your skid plate back on, just make sure there's no leaks underneath the truck. Check around the Fumoto valve or the stock drain plug if you're not using the valve, and around the filter. Just make sure there's no dripping or leaking or seeping anywhere around those two locations. So what I'm going to do, hang tight, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wait 5,000 miles. I'm going to show you guys exactly how much easier and cleaner it is to do this oil change from here on out, now that we have the Fumoto valve in place and we also have this piece to drain that filter. All right, so I will see you guys in 5,000 miles. All right, guys, here we are 5,000 miles later. Let's get this next oil change done, and I'll show you the advantages of using all of these aftermarket parts. Before we go any further, I should have mentioned this in the first part of the video as well, but safety first. Even though my truck is lifted and I can easily go underneath my truck without it crushing me and blah, 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 that doesn't matter. Always err on the side of caution, okay? As you can see, we have it up on my homemade lift blocks. Don't have to worry about those giving out on us or anything. Parking brake is on, and I also have wheel chocks behind the rear wheels back there. You can't see them, of course, because they're on the other side of the wheels, or the tires, I should say, but I also have the tire chocks back there as well. All right, let's get under there and get this done. First step, drain the oil pan. All we're gonna do is take this hose here that we did have to buy separately. Again, all links to everything you see in this video will be down below. We're just gonna pop that end onto the Fumoto valve, take the other end, push it right into our drainage container here. It's a 16-quart drain container. Once that's in place, we're gonna open the valve on the Fumoto, let it drain into the pan, nice and neat. Now this may take a few minutes just because you're draining through a hose instead of it just pouring out into the pan. But as you can see, there's absolutely no mess. I'll give you a little bit closer of a look there. No dripping, nothing. And we're just draining down the tube right into the drainage container. All right, so much cleaner. I'm gonna let this drain out and we'll pick up from there. Quick tip, guys, which I just thought of. If you want to trim this hose, that way it could drain straight down, because as you can see, I kind of have it run it down and forward. I should have trimmed that hose a little bit. That way it could come straight down into the pan. It's coming down by gravity, so it'll just make it a little bit quicker. Just a quick little tip for you. Next oil change, I am going to trim this hose, and that way it'll come straight down into my drain container. All right, the pan is drained. As you can see, I don't know how well it's going to turn out on the video, but you can clearly see in person that the oil has stopped draining down the tube. So all we're going to do is close the valve on the Fumoto, the shutoff valve. We're going to put our cap back in place. That keeps it from coming undone. So we'll snap that back on, and we'll just disconnect our hose here. And the pan is done. We'll move on to the filter. This is where this tool right here is going to shine, okay? It's the piece that I mentioned with the MotivX kit to drain the filter. So all we're going to do is take the threaded portion. Now let me show you what this does. Because before you put it up into the filter, you want to make sure you have this in the closed position. If you watch the top right here, this bottom nut, or whatever you want to call it, when you turn that, hopefully you can see it, this black piece is pushing up. Okay, that's the open position. That's what's going to allow us to drain the filter. So you want to have that all the way down. So let's unscrew it, get it all the way down. Now that's in the closed position, we're just going to take this, screw it up in here where we remove that silver cap. We'll place the other end into the drain container, and that's going to drain the filter with zero mess. So I'm just making that kind of hand tight right there. Put the other end into the drainage container. And now we'll take that bottom nut, screw it up, and you should be able to see the oil draining down the tube into the container. Again, zero drips, zero mess. I don't know why I never used these things before, but we're gonna go ahead and let that drain. And then we'll take the filter housing off, change the filter, and we're good to go. As you can probably see in the video, oil filter is drained. It's no longer coming down the hose here. So we're just going to go ahead and close that valve by screwing that bottom nut all the way back down. Once that's closed, we can just go ahead and remove it from the filter housing. And I'm going to have a shop towel here ready. You shouldn't get too much right here. Might not get anything at all, to be honest, but just in case. And there we go. Not even a drip. All that's left to do is take our oil wrench, or I'm sorry, the filter wrench, get the housing out of there, take the old filter out, clean it all up, put the new filter in, button everything up, and fill up the truck. All right, guys, there you have it. Just don't forget to change those 2 O-rings on your filter housing that I showed you in the first half of the video when we changed the oil the first time. As simple as that. These things are worth their weight in gold if you're going to change your own oil. So much cleaner, so much easier to do. My drain container doesn't even have a drop of oil on the outside. I mean, it's crazy what a difference these things make. So check out the Fumoto Valve, the MotivX toolkit. Links will be down below for everything you saw in the video. And if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, as always, leave them down below and we'll get them addressed for you. All right, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.